Hello and good afternoon. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, joining you as almost every day now from Honolulu, Hawaii for Livestream.travel and eTurboNews. With me, as always, is Dr. Peter Talo, joining us from hopefully sunny College Station in Texas. In Hawaii, since we always start with the weather, and this is important, it's fairly nice and sunny here today. A few clouds I see when I look outside, but a lot of people are sailing and cruises, dinner cruises resumed, I guess, in Waikiki. Maybe they don't serve dinner like they used to serve. I understand it's in plastic cover bag, but people are having fun. Tourism, I would say, is booming in Hawaii. We haven't seen these numbers for the last year. So how's everything in College Station today?
Well, it was a little less sunny here in College Station. It was just in the 70-degree range, but cloudy. It rained last night and it's supposed to rain again possibly tomorrow. But then we're expecting a really nice weekend. As you know, on Saturday is Passover weekend, and so that'll make it really kind of special. That'll be a nice warm, hopefully nice warm time. And of course, this is spring break, and that's been a really interesting period. Here in College Station, they cut spring break to only one day because of COVID. But of course, in Miami, many colleges did have spring break, and many of those people caused a lot of problems in Miami. One, of course, having that many kids on the street, it's got to be a super spreader problem for COVID. And then, of course, many of them did not behave very well. And so there's been issues of rapes or assaults or all sorts of things. The mayor of Miami finally had to put a curfew at 8 o'clock in the evening. So it is spring break. Spring is starting, but unfortunately, I think a lot of people have felt very cooped up, and they're letting all their emotions out in a kind of antisocial behavior. And so that's going to be a real problem, because when they come home, they may be coming home sick again and restarting the COVID virus. So hopefully that won't happen, but it very well could be.
Yeah, and I think people need to be aware of it. This is not over.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I know all of us want to travel, we want to party, we want to meet people. It takes a little bit more time.
Yeah,
and
it is.
before we
And we are seeing some bright spots. I think I mentioned to you that Israel declared the pandemic over, but they're not letting foreigners in. In other words, they're afraid that people will import the disease into the country. So if you are living in Israel, you're okay. And the pandemic is now declared done. I think 70% of the population has been vaccinated. On the other hand, the other side of that is tourism is still very low because they're afraid to have people come in. A good thing in Texas is that on Monday, the governor announced this coming Monday that any Texan over the age of 16 is now able to get the COVID vaccine. So it will be done on a statewide basis, no longer by priority. And we have enough people vaccinated here that they're able to now make it available at all the pharmacies around this, or many of the pharmacies around the state, and other vaccine centers. And hopefully by the end of this month, we will have a good, maybe 70% of our population here also vaccinated. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think we're doing pretty good in the United States compared to many other countries in the world.
Yes.
So we're very fortunate, because if you look
And we're allowed to travel here. I was reading on the BBC that it was a £5,000, I think I have that right, fine for any British person who wants to go abroad this summer. And if that's true, and I'm not 100% sure that I have the right numbers or that it's 100% correct what I'm saying, but I believe that to be the situation, that's really going to be a real problem for people in Britain. They're dreaming of vacations that they can't take. I think you mentioned to me in Germany, you have an issue where people can't go even 20 miles from their home.
Well, it's not the miles, but people are advised to stay at home over the Easter holiday. And you look, the bureaucracy comes in. There should be an immediate regulation, but it's not. Right now, everything is still quite open, but it starts in a week. And we don't have a week with this virus. I think governments sometimes have a hard time catching up. And when they catch up, by then things are really worse. So it's this program, this whole virus situation is handled so differently in so many different parts of the world. It really
Yes,
needed a global approach. What hasn't happened to
no.
most of the
The
essential.
World Health Organization did not do a good job on this at all. Um, and they could have developed a set of protocols for the entire world that every nation would follow, and that never happened.
But of
So
course, the World Health Organization doesn't have the power.
no, but they
There's
could have had the ethical power
national
to do
interest
it.
involved.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, it is what it is. And I think we need to stay put. I'm not too thrilled to hear what's going on in Florida and South Beach. It's a wonderful place to travel and to party if you're young in normal times, but not
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
And if you
Well, of
see,
course, it is happening, and that's a problem. So, you are seeing problems both in the United States and in parts of the world. I think if you told me that if Germans go to Mallorca, will they create some sort of another problem there as far as COVID? Of course, we have the terrible problems along the border, and tomorrow uh, the government's going to be addressing the total collapse on the U.S.-Mexican border, and Mexico had condemned much of what's going on in the world today. And I understand that. And the cartels are booming. So that's a real problem because people want to go to Mexico are now afraid because northern Mexico is basically become a no man's land due to the cartels and the rush to the US border. So that's really destroyed all the tourism in places like Matamoros along the area, or Monterrey, the third largest city in Mexico. It's having some real issues. On the other hand, there are lots of wonderful countries. So one of the countries I was looking at the map that I think has so much to offer is Indonesia. And I know you've spent time there. And when tourism does open up again, that might be a great place for people to visit.
well, Indonesia has always been a great place to visit. You have a lot of diversity. You have a lot of, you have the mix of culture, beaches. I mean, it's and country with how many 10,000s of islands? I don't know.
And
But
so they all have a coastline.
and they are, it's not so it's enough coastline. But you have, of course, you have the Java culture. You have Kalimantan, and then of course there's Bali. What's completely
Yes,
different? The Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world, with the
right.
largest Muslim population. But Bali isn't Muslims. Actually, they don't even, most of the time it appears they don't like the Muslims. And it's
Yeah.
Hindu. So it's a completely different
Yeah.
culture. Bali
It
always,
isn't there a part, another part of Indonesia, which is a very Christian part of Indonesia.
Christians are everywhere. There is Molucca Islands, for example, you find many Christians. And you find usually Christians live in harmony with the Muslims. There are tensions sometimes, but tensions are not really usual. I think it's a fairly peaceful country for the most part, and of course it's a locked country right now because of
Yes.
COVID. And Indonesia tourism industry is is an important industry. It's not the only industry. I mean, Indonesia has larger industries than tourism, but it's a very important industry, and specifically on the island of Bali, where on many of the islands, tourism is almost an essential industry.
Sure.
So hopefully,
Yeah, and I think it would be a really, once tourism opens up again, I think it'd be a really excuse me, let me shut this off here. Stop. Um, eh, I apologize for that. Hopefully you can knock it out. The Once tourism opens up again, I think this is going to be a really fascinating place to go. Ugh, excuse me.
it's like my computer; it rings everywhere. You know, once
Oh, I hate it. Yes.
TV goes, I have the Google app. I don't know what they call it. Hey Google, and I don't want to say this because it might start in the background.
Yeah, no, don't do. You cut that out. But the
I get my phone turned off all night usually, but
yes,
in some, I don't want to say what system because I don't want people to try it. But there's one of the phone systems you cannot really cut off. So in the
yes,
middle of the night at 3 in the morning, if someone calls me on that particular system, it goes everywhere. I mean, it's all over the
And of
place.
course, one of the problems is that there is uh, there's so many time zones, and in the world of tourism, somebody is up at every time of the hour. So no matter what time you go, it's always there.
Yeah,
But I
you can
think
know
that
the song. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
yeah, that's right. Yes. So people always say to me, I say, well, they say it's time to have a drink. And I go, but it's in the middle of the afternoon. They go, yes, but someplace in the world it's 10 o'clock at night. So I go, okay. um, I think that, one of the fascinating things about tourism is that we're able to see different parts of the world and explore different cultures and different ideas. And so one of the things I think is nice is when we talk about some of the different countries, what are a few of the really interesting things to visit? If you were going to go to Indonesia for a week, not you necessarily, Jürgen Steinmetz, but a person, would you just go to Jakarta? Would you go to some of the islands, or how would you how might somebody spend a week in Indonesia?
Well, it depends what you do. I think most people really identify Indonesia tourism with the island of Bali. It's called the island of the god.
Yes,
It is a holiday every single day. Similar, I guess, to the Jewish culture, the Hindu culture has a holiday every single day. So when you're in
they have
Bali,
more holidays than we have.
yes, you can actually go to any village. You find a village. There's a calendar where there's a holiday. So Bali is a special place. You have the beaches, you have the nightlife, but you definitely also have the cultural experience, and you have beautiful hotels from 5-star to very popular are private villas you can rent. And not only do you rent the villa, you can rent the staff with it. So you don't you they
Wow.
cook for you, they're clean for you. It's like a full service hotel, but it's your private villa. So Bali is very good. But besides Bali, of course, there are other places you should visit. In Java, you have a lot of cultural sites you could explore. Jakarta is a big city. It's a huge city. It's not really, I think, that much a place most tourists would go to unless you have business dealings in
Yeah,
Jakarta.
it's a
But I
business
always
city.
because it's a modern city, and I live in a place on an island. I have beaches around me all the time. So if I would go to Indonesia, I probably may not want to go to the beach someplace. So
Yes.
maybe Bali, I go to Ubud, what is inland, where you have beautiful scenery in on the mountains and Jakarta I always enjoyed because there's so much going on at all times, shopping and
Yeah.
nice hotels and nice restaurants and so forth.
One of the interesting things while we finish up talking about Indonesia is that Indonesia really became the mother, quote unquote, of the food in Holland. And when you're in the Netherlands, people love Indonesian food. I think Holland occupied Indonesia for quite a while.
It was a
And
colony, you know,
the
and
Dutch left, but they brought the food with them. And so there are restaurants all over Amsterdam and all over Holland and all over the Netherlands that serve Rijkstafel, which is a traditional Indonesian kind of smorgasbord that's now become a Dutch national food. So it's kind of unique the way the world of tourism has changed things. And when you're in the Netherlands, if you're not slithering herring down your throat, you have stuff made with peanut butter.
yeah, and look, I mean, my father went to school in Holland. That's the only education he had. He even though he was German, but he grew up in Holland and he knew everything about Indonesia. He's never
Yeah.
been there, but in Dutch schools, you learned about Indonesia because it
Yeah.
was in the old days a
Occupied.
colony. It was not really occupied, it was a colony. And so even many names, if you speak Dutch, you see apotheek, for example, pharmacy, it's the Dutch name. And there are many examples like this in the Indonesian language that relate back to Holland.
Loan
Now,
words from Holland.
yeah, there is a love-hate relationship in a way, I think. And this has changed, but I know when I was very active working with Indonesia about 20 years ago, Dutch people coming to Indonesia needed a visa. The only Europeans needing visas were Holland, people from Holland. That now has changed, but they always had flights and connections
Yeah.
between Holland and Indonesia. And yes, in Holland, you find a large a percentage of the Dutch people in the major cities are actually of Indonesian heritage. So that's
Yeah.
why you find a lot of the restaurants and the cultural life, Moluccas, for example, in Holland. They're Dutch people. They have a Dutch passport, but they're original and they're.
Yeah. So I think that's a real interesting concept. I think we should try to talk about different countries around the world. I think that's sort of an important thing as COVID begins to, God willing, wane, and people are able. I think we're all anxious to get back to travel. I think people cannot wait for these borders to end and be able to see the world again and to reconnect. And God willing, in 2021 or the beginning of 2022, we'll be able to do that. And that's really be a great thing. So maybe that's a nice positive way for us to end for the evening. And I don't know how you say aloha in Indonesian, but do you know the word for goodbye in Indonesian?
I only know thank you, I remember.
All right.
I don't know.
All right. So
But
we'll just say
it in Dutch. It's tot ziens.
all right. So we'll just, if you don't know what to say, you can always say shalom. So I'll speak to you tomorrow and have a good evening. And hopefully it'll be a pleasant day in Hawaii tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Peter. And everyone, thank you for watching us today. And stay tuned for some additional messages. And also, if you need to see a repeat of any of our talk sessions, just go to livestream.travel. I'm sorry, livestream.travel, and you find all our events, both in podcast format and in video format. So you can go back and listen in if you're bored. And other than that, I wish you good night, good morning.
Aloha.
And aloha. Aloha. And see you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Aloha and good morning, everybody. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, and I'm joining you from World Tourism Network in Honolulu this morning, together with eTurboNews, Hawaii News Online, and Livestream.travel. Today, I wouldn't say the word celebrating, but we're remembering 1 year of rebuilding.travel. It's a discussion, and I wanted to explain it to those that are not familiar with World Tourism Network yet, and maybe who are listening to us online, who we are. Before we do this, if you're currently watching us on eTurboNews or on any of our social media, Hawaii News Online, for those that are here in Honolulu, you can actually still be part of this live audience. And it's very easy to do. Just go to eTurboNews.com, go to WTN.travel, and when you scroll up, right where if you watch us, right on top of where you see the screen, there's a red button to join this event. Click on it, register, and you can be part of this live audience. Now, to explain a little bit before we introduce our guest, and we have many guests this morning, World Tourism Network, it started with a discussion a year ago exactly on March 5th at the ITB trade show in Berlin. Unfortunately, ITB never happened. It was canceled, but many of us were already in Berlin, and we had a discussion planned together with the Pacific Asia Travel Association and the African Tourism Board on how the industry should react and respond to COVID. And this is when COVID just started, when we really had no idea how bad it's really going to get. Of course, everyone was alarmed and disappointed that ITB was canceled, but we thought it's going to be like a cold and a flu, and it's going to be finished in about a month. So since all of us that were in Berlin already and registered for this event, we actually had our meeting at the Grand Hyatt Hotel on March 5th. And in the original meeting, we had Dov, who was on our meeting last night. He cannot join us now in Israel, and several others. It was a small meeting, but that's when rebuilding.travel started. And we continued rebuilding.travel, and it was built up, and many of you were there from the very beginning, and currently has members in 127 countries. So we're quite global. We have people in the public sectors, we have ministers of tourism, CEOs of tourism boards, but we kind of are looking out for the medium and small guys in the business. These are really our core membership. These are the medium and small size companies, the tour guides, independent hotels, and they have made a big difference in our discussion. Now, in December, we decided to start an organization where we brought rebuilding.travel in, and this was the launch of the World Tourism Network. World Tourism Network is now a member organization. We're complement to any other organization. We're not competing with anyone. We're just trying to be helpful for those that wanted to be part of our rebuilding.travel discussion and join other discussions. So currently, with about 1,450 members and 700 observers, we're a little bit more than 2,000 altogether in 127 countries. And the way we structured is really we have interest groups. And these interest groups have different sectors of the industry. Like last night, we heard from Vijay, who runs our aviation interest group. We're going to hear from Professor Snow White, who just joined us now, about our education interest group. We have an hospitality interest group. We have one for the tour guides. We did tour events for tour guides, and I know Diana was on one of them. We actually did an inauguration party for President Biden in Washington, where we had tour guides showing us around a kind of closed up Washington, DC this time. We had an event with tour guides from Tanzania, from Bhutan, from Peru, showing us around their thing. And I think there is a wonderful opportunity actually for tour guides to stay in business in selling virtual tours. So we're going to hear hopefully about this today. Marikar is trying to join us in between. However, she also has some other events she's attending today. Now, without further ado, I wanted to just say before we start, there are two co-founders. They're here for the organization. There is Dr. Peter Tarlow. He will be joining us shortly. He's currently on a conference call with Japan. He's involved in the Olympic planning in Tokyo. And as soon as he finished this call, he will join us. And we just actually had his wife joining us, so welcome. And then, of course, we have Dr. Taleb Rifai, who has been essential in what we're doing right from the very first moment. And the rebuilding.travel discussion, actually, in the beginning, it was really part of the Project Hope, what was started and initiated by the African Tourism Board and by Dr. Taleb Rifai and by Cuthbert Nkubi, who's also joining us, and we will hear from him. So it came from Africa, and it was an African idea we kind of now taking to a global level. So we're very much aligned with the African Tourism Board in anything and everything we have been doing and how we got started. So without further delay, I wanted to just say that Louis D'Amour, he's the CEO and the founder of the Peace Through Tourism, International Institute for Peace Through Tourism. He's trying to join us now, but he hasn't managed to be online. When he comes in, I'm going to try to give him the floor right away because he has a doctor's appointment and he cannot be with us for too long. So I'm going to watch out for him. But I think, why don't we just hear from Dr. Taleb Rifai, and then we go to our guest of honor. Good morning, Taleb, or good evening, better.
It is evening here in Jordan. Thank you so much, Jürgen. I'm calling you from Amman, Jordan. It's one of the 127 countries that Jürgen just mentioned. I'm very happy to be here. I want to recognize the presence of Ivan from Ukraine. Ivan, welcome. And the presence of Jeffrey Lippmann as well as my co-founder, Cuthbert Nkubi from ATV. Jürgen, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's a great opportunity. Diana, it's wonderful to be here again with you. You and your tour guides are wonderful people. You're the core of our industry, without doubt. You're the blood and butter of this industry. Now, why am I speaking here? I'm speaking here because I want to thank one particular person, Thomas Jürgen. Jürgen has been the instrument bringing all of us together. I'm sorry I'm not speaking so loud. I just took my vaccine today, my second vaccine. I'm feeling a bit tired. That's why I could not join in the morning. But otherwise, I'm doing well. Alhamdulillah. Thomas, Jürgen, thank you so much for bringing all of us together. Modi, my best regards to Indonesia. Thank you so much, everyone, for being with us today. It's a great opportunity to celebrate. I was not with you in Berlin. I was with you the year before that. It's the only year I missed was last year. But I've been with you in spirit. I'll continue to support you as much as I can. Thank you so much, Jürgen. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, and for everything you're doing, Dr. Taleb Rifai. For those that are watching us and are not 100% familiar, especially if you're not part of this industry, Dr. Taleb Rifai was the Secretary General for 2 terms at the United Nations World Tourism Organization, and really under his leadership, he brought the private and public sector together like no one else. And I think the world of tourism owes him a tremendous thanks. And now, even after his retirement, Dr. Rifai has been active in so many different initiatives. It's unbelievable. I don't know how you do it, but you must be the healthiest person on earth. And that's what we wish you. Stay healthy. And I hope the second vaccine will do you good. So without a further delay, I wanted to introduce our guest of honor. And this is also a gentleman who has been essential in the African Tourism Board. I helped to also set up in 2018. And Cuthbert would say a little bit more, but I wanted to not let him wait. He's the Minister of Tourism from a very important country when it comes to travel and tourism. It's the Kingdom of Eswatini. And those that don't know where Eswatini is, and I know there are people where we have a global world and not everyone knows where every country is, but if you hear Swaziland, then you know where it is. Swaziland, it's now the Kingdom of Eswatini. It's in the southern part of Africa, and the Honorable Minister Vilakati has been, as I said, essential. He's always available, he's always there, he has joined a lot of our sessions even quietly in the background, and I want to thank you for this.
Great minister.
Yes, he's a global player from an important country, but he will tell you himself. Welcome. Good evening, Honorable Minister.
Good evening, Johan, and good evening to all. It's always great to be here and to listen and to hear from great friends. As I've been introduced, I'm the Minister of Tourism, but I've also other feathers like because it's Minister of Tourism, Environment Affairs, and Forestry. So it's quite a mouthful, and I'm very excited to be part of this discussion. Here we are talking rebuilding travel, but I really wanted to focus more on Africa because, and to that extent, talk a bit about Eswatini. But maybe before I even get there, when I joined the African Tourism Board, little did I know that I would meet great friends, great people who were able to share with me their experiences in tourism. My background is that of being an agriculturalist. So here I am now having to talk tourism. But I was used to traveling, so I used to experience a few things here and there. But when I became a member of the African Tourism Board, I gained a lot of experience from the expertise that you have heard of, some of the individuals that have been introduced. And for me, it was very exciting to meet, greet, and share experiences on how we can shape tourism in Africa and throughout the world. And that is the exciting part. And when I look at the year where we are right now and realize the achievements that we have had, and obviously some challenges here and there, I can attest that this has been a worthwhile journey for us to achieve more. Where is Eswatini? Well, some would say, hey, we have never heard of such a country. It is there. It's in Southern Africa, surrounded by South Africa and Mozambique. It's about 17,000 square kilometers. Very small, but with a big heart. And a very big heart for that matter. We pride ourselves as a country that still follows traditions and cultural norms of the country. We are a monarchy, and we have preserved our culture, which is very rich, for the past 400 years, which is basically from generation to generation. And we therefore welcome guests from the continent, from the world, who visit our country to witness some of these cultural events and activities. They are there throughout the year. But more than that, when you look at the scenery, it's very majestic, with valleys and forestry, plus wildlife reserves. We pride ourselves that we have got the big five, which you can be able to see within a day. And this has helped us a lot, the combination of the culture and the combination of the wildlife and the sceneries. But this is true for most of the African countries, as some of you might have visited, because Africa prides itself of that. It still needs to be nurtured. And the issue of environment, I was happy that as a country where tourism and environment under one roof, because through the preservation of the environment, then we're able to say we have got a country, we've got the environment which we try to keep intact. Now, when I look back in terms of the rebuilding of the travel, it has not been an easy journey. In particular, after March last year, when COVID-19 came and changed the way in which we were used to attracting people to come to our country. I remember very well, I thought that it was going to be just a 1 month thing. I said, it's just a normal flu. It's going to be over within a week, a month. It's the whole year right now. So we have got to start adapting to the new norm, because it's now a new normal. Thank God that the doctors have been very good, and they've started producing some of these vaccines, which we hope will now help us to start opening our borders and visiting our brothers and sisters and our friends. What did we then do as a country and as a region and as Africa? During those pandemics, each country obviously had to close its borders. And it meant the tourism sector was really affected, and affected badly. In our country, tourism contributes about 10%. But last year, 10% of the GDP. But due to the COVID, it has gone down to almost 3%. Hospitality industries have closed. People have been retrained. And we've started thinking about the new norm. How do we now survive? How do we rebuild our travel? How do we make sure that the people that used to enjoy the wildlife can still come to our countries? This is the big question that I think we need to discuss and deliberate on to make sure that we can rebuild our fragile tourism sector. But maybe before I end, tourism is really resilient. And if we package our narratives, we would ensure that we can attract those people that love to travel. People have been quarantined and they are saying we want to come. And therefore, it's about time to say we are open, and Africa is now opening, by the way. We are already seeing countries getting the COVID vaccines, and we're hoping that by July, August, most of these countries would have been vaccinated. And that is an opportunity that we can now cherish together. But as countries, what we then did was we started focusing on the domestic tourism. We realized that there were lots of things that we didn't know internally. And that has been going from country to country. And fortunately, it's an opportunity that has been brought by this pandemic because now we have more ambassadors. We now have more people who now understand the countryside, who understand what the beauty of the country, the sceneries, etc. And that to me has been the lessons that I've learned to make sure that as I present today, I can say I now understand the country better because I've also tried to travel because there were certain places that I wouldn't travel because I wanted to lead from the front to make sure that, yes, you can go to such and such a place. Yes, you can enjoy a meal in there. Yes, you can climb this mountain. And I think that is the lesson that I learned. As we move forward, we have a dedicated strategy that say, as we open our borders, let's make sure that we can incentivize the people, the tourists that are going to come to our various countries. We can now share with our neighbors so that if people come to Southern Africa, we can start looking at a bouquet, which will allow people to visit one country and to the next. But the key is to make sure that the protocols are similar, because if the protocols are not similar, then we might encounter problems as we move forward. Otherwise, with me, I'm very excited to be here. I look forward to the discussions and to answer any questions. I realize that there are a number of guests, so I felt that I should just whet your appetite so that I can be able to answer questions as we move along. Thank you very much, Johan, and thank you very much for listening to me.
And thank you, Minister, so much for laying this out. Before we get to question, if you allow us, I wanted to recognize Louis D'Amour. He has very limited time, I understand, so I want to give him the floor, and then we can maybe go to questions for the Minister and Louis, and then go on in the program. And in between, it's an open forum. So if you have questions of any sort in between, feel free to raise your hand. But Louis D'Amour is the founder and president of the International Institute for Peace Through Tourism. He's joining us from New York. He has been there also from the very beginning. I think we don't really have to explain. Peace Through Tourism is self-explanatory. He had a number of, I would say, very influential events in the world. He can tell you a little bit about himself, his organization, and we're very glad to have you here, Louis. Good morning.
Good morning, Thomas, and my apologies for being late signing on. I had a funeral to go to that I didn't realize till last night. So thank you for your patience, and hello to everyone. It's good to see so many friends there joining you. And Jürgen, I want to congratulate you and Peter Tarlow on your 1-year anniversary of this amazing achievement. It's great to see so many friends celebrating with you, in particular, Dr. Taleb Rafai, who inspired us all during his 8 years as UN WTO Secretary General. and continues to do so. IIPT has been most honored that he agreed to be chairman of our International Advisory Board on leaving the UN World Tourism Organization. You have been successful in uniting small and medium-sized travel and tourism businesses and giving them a voice to express their needs and aspirations. With members in more than 120 countries and growing, as well as chapters and networks, which includes a Peace Through Tourism network that we look forward to expanding in the days ahead. I'm particularly grateful to you and World Tourism Network for hosting several IIPT Zoom forums, the most recent of which announced a series of IIPT initiatives in support of the UN International Year of Peace and Trust. Some of these include the IIPT ASRAC project, with a goal of providing humanitarian assistance for Syrian refugees in the Azraq Community Center in Jordan. A community organic farm in India linked to tourism with the local administration of the region and involving MBA students in a rural sensitization program. Transforming communities through community tourism with a strategy that includes community development, entrepreneurship, inclusive innovation, and civic participation. And I'm glad to see Diana McIntyre Pike is with us today, and she certainly will be able to expand on that much further. An olive tree trekking route in Turkey that incorporates the archaeological and current olive tree locations with an emphasis in certain historic communities where IIPT Peace Parks will be located as focal points along the route. An online booking platform for travelers interested in peace through tourism. And I believe Andreas Larentzakis is also there with us. He can expand on that. Peace with Food, a documentary on sustainable organic agriculture. Peace tours to Chernobyl, Hiroshima, and North Korea, a festival of peace in Iran, and a goal of increasing IIPT's peace parks around the world from 450 to 1,000 by the end of the year. This is our primary initiative, Jürgen, and we welcome everyone to join us on this. Jürgen and the World Tourism Network, as well as Jeff Lippmann and his Sun X project, will be joining us as partners on this initiative. In the spirit of thinking globally and acting locally, I've been working on the dedication of a peace park in my hometown, Utica, New York, where I have returned after being away for 63 years. F.T. Proctor Park in Utica is a National Historic Site, and it will be dedicated as an IIPT Peace Park on September 1, the UN International Day of Peace. I invite all of you to join us in achieving the goal of 1,000 IIPT Peace Parks circling the Earth, or any of the projects I have mentioned. Please contact me at ljd@iipt.org. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Jürgen. And again, congratulations to you and Peter, and my best to all who are participating in this with you.
No, thank you very much,
Thank
Lou.
you. Thank you so much, Lou.
And if you needed Lou's address, he's also on the WTN website. Just look him up, either look under New York, or better even click on the interest group for Peace Through Tourism, and you have Lou's contact information there as well. And you can actually also see, if you go to archive, specifically to livestream.travel, the two events we did for IIPT. They're quite intensive and very informative. I wanted to
Jürgen, can I just interrupt you a second, as I came in late, and just apologize to everyone for coming in late?
Yes, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, hello to everybody. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm on the security workings for the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles, and often these committee meetings just seem to pop up out of no place. So I had to be at an Olympics committee meeting, and then I got back to you all as soon as I can. Louis, thank you for your good words. Minister, I'm sorry I missed the first part of it. I apologize. Lots of success, and I'm sure this is being a wonderful program. So this is a really great day for both Jürgen and me as far as celebration. We started this a year ago, and here it is.
No,
So-
thank you, Peter, and thanks for
Alan, it's good to
raising
see
your
you.
hand. I
Thank
didn't
you,
even
thank
see you came in. I saw your
Thank you,
wife
thank you.
is in, and welcome also, Nancy, for joining us. But let's go back real briefly to Minister Vilakati. I think he had a very, very interesting discussion, and he really did a great job of introducing the Kingdom of Eswatini. And Minister, what I'm suggesting is also, and I wanted to just see if anyone has any specific questions, but that we do maybe a special session on Eswatini, where we could actually just talk about your country, your achievements. And I know the head of your tourism board, Lillian, she has been extremely active over the years. And I think there could be a lot to talk to about. So we'd be very happy to facilitate this and give everyone a really good overview and what's going on and what are the plans for Eswatini. I'm trying to get you back on the spotlight here, but my computer is not. Oh no, now it works. Okay, so so we got you back in the picture here. But I'm wondering if any one of you has a question to the minister right now. Please raise your hand, and we can do this. Or of course you can, when anything comes up during the course of this session, and we have a very intense session with a lot more very interesting, a lot of more interesting speakers as well. But we have Max from Germany raising his hand. Go ahead, Max. Max, you have to unmute yourself, I think. Well, okay, I think for some reason it didn't work out, but we have Anita raising her hand. Anita, let us know where you're from, and go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, WTN team. This is a wonderful program. I'm happy to be here. I'm from Nigeria. I'm the president of the Women in Renewable Energy Association, and I'm also the founder, chairman of Smiling Simon Greenfield Foundation, and we are into ecotourism. We are working through the tourism value chain in such a way that we can decarbonize, the environment. And I love what the minister has spoken about, the environment, protection of the environment through tourism. And I really would like to ask him, how can we all work together in Africa, particularly through that wonderful body, African Tourism Organization, that we can have a pavilion in one country of the 54 countries, featuring our foods, our culture, tradition, our beverages, all under one little pavilion, so that we can actually work with a peace mission, because we can go through food and our beverages and foster peace in Africa. That is my question for him. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. This is a mouthful. I was last in Nigeria when I went to Ibadan at IITA, and I learned a lot, particularly about business, and also some of the cultural activities that obtained in Nigeria. I was very, very excited. There were certain things I was trying to steal But little did I know that at some point I'll be a minister. If I knew then, I would have ensured that some of your cultures would have come down south of Africa. I think the question that you are putting on the floor is very, very important. How can we make sure that we can capitalize on the rich cultures of Africa? Because from country to country, the cultures are very, very rich. I think we need to start looking at that. When I look at some of these cultural events that are done outside of Africa, like the Brazilian cultural event, I think we can have one in Africa. And through African Tourism Board, I will have to push Cuthbert to make sure that we host one, so that all of these cultures can come together. It can start as a weekend, and thereafter maybe for the whole week. Imagine having all of those cultures under one roof, and each one showcasing what they are good at. Of course, I know that Eswatini would beat you, but that's for another day. I think it's a wonderful idea, Cuthbert. Please, let's check it as part of the menu that as we move forward. I really would like to take this one on immediately.
No, this is a very good feedback, Anita. And of course, we didn't forget Cuthbert. Cuthbert definitely needs to weigh in there. Before we go to Cuthbert, Taleb raised his hand. So let's go to Taleb and then we go to Cuthbert, if that's okay.
Thank you so much. I just want to salute the minister. He's been a great minister. And I want to tell him something, a secret between him and I. He shouldn't worry about the fact that he's not specialized in tourism. You're an agricultural person, you have passion for tourism. I was like you. I came from architecture, from politics, into tourism. But you have to have passion, and you have it. Minister, what you said is absolutely correct. You are a great man, and you'll do a lot of good things, I'm sure. Just wanted to say that before we move on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Taleb. And the minister already addressed Cuthbert Nkubi. Cuthbert Nkubi is the chairman of the African Tourism Board. African Tourism Board started in 2018, and Cuthbert has been there from the very beginning. African Tourism Board, when you think about African Tourism Board, you definitely think about Cuthbert Nkubi in Pretoria, and there's a lot going on, and I think the suggestion from Moses is quite important. And Cuthbert is now, I think, joining us today from Namibia. He's traveling, and I have to say that we're all of us who knew Cuthbert had COVID in quite a bad way, and it looks like he fully recovered. And there's a little bit of a story also through it, and if you want to tell this story, feel free to do so. We've published it in eTurboNews, but it's amazing the recovery Cuthbert made. He looks like the old Cuthbert, and I don't mean old in a way of old, but you're looking young and fresh. And thank you for joining both sessions, Cuthbert.
From African, saved by African.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Jürgen. Really appreciate your support and your prayers as well. Honorable Minister, thank you so much. We really appreciate, always eager to move and to run. And we really appreciate as we are aligning Eswatini within the global tourism space. We acknowledge and we're noting your endeavors and your participation as well within the African Tourism Board. We really appreciate and thank you so much. Thank you so much once again, Dr. Talo, Dr. Taleb, as we celebrate the high and byways of success drawn by yourselves and team players behind the World Tourism Network supported by the African Tourism Board in bringing the tourism champions together in so many engagements that we have had. May I hasten to echo the words of our executive member and patron of African Tourism Board, Dr. Taleb, that all mankind originated from Africa. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, it doesn't matter your height and your length, we are all brothers and sisters. The beauty part of it is that tourism has cemented that narrative and reality of it. May I therefore be allowed to go much further to say that Africa is the richest continent on earth, with so much gold mined from mountains and valleys of almost all the member states. Diamonds produced in South Africa, in Botswana, in Namibia, where I am today, Liberia, Sierra Leone, just to name a few. We produce the best cocoa. Africa produces the best tea that has found its market on the shelves of the United Kingdom and beyond. So therefore, Africa has plates of platinum and layers that can supply the whole world for the next decade. What am I saying, colleagues? When it comes to tourism, it is the only primary drivers of economic growth and job creation in Africa. We have a unique history, as I allude to my minister, that with our diversity across the continent, our natural wonders that have gained momentum and attention amid the local and global increase in cultural heritage. I allude with you, Anita, that with our rich cultural heritage, we need to have a conference where we have a conversion of all our diversity to celebrate the beauty of Africa through tourism. Our 54 member states have tremendous opportunity to become and remain vibrant hosts for both domestic and international tourism and investment at large. Therefore, as we set the pace for activation to our tourism economy, dear brothers and sisters across the globe, Africa is open. Africa is rich. Come visit and invest. This is your home. We will welcome you with wide open arms. Thank you so much, Jürgen. We really appreciate. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Cuthbert, for your input.
Thank you, Cuthbert. Thank you.
And thank you again, Minister Vilakazi, for your presentation. And we keep this an open discussion. So if there are important issues or questions, bring them up. You can also email us later. We can share it with the Honorable Minister, with Cuthbert. And we're going to have many more sessions and discussions to get into more details, I'm sure. Also wanted to recognize Zine Nukwana. She's joining us from Johannesburg, and she has been essential also in the African Tourism Board. Now let's go from Africa to London.
Jürgen, can I comment on?
Sure, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that had it not been for COVID, IIPT was planning a global summit in Africa on the theme, "Come Home to Africa, Birthplace of the Global Family." And Cuthbert, maybe IIPT and the African Tourism Board can cooperate on such a conference as soon as COVID permits.
And I think that's a wonderful idea, and we can definitely help to coordinate this. And Cuthbert was saying something, but you're muted, Cuthbert.
No, I was just saying thank you so much, Luis. We really appreciate your energy. And as African Tourism Board, definitely it would be an honor for us to synergize and start working together. I remember we participated together in one of the conferences a few years ago in Johannesburg. It will be a great pleasure. Let's work towards it. Most probably, let's converge and have a discussion so that we can start the preparations.
Yeah, Dr. Rafai is aware of this. I've had discussions with Dr. Rafai on such a conference. And Jürgen, Cuthbert, I look forward to further communication with you to see if we can move this forward.
Okay, thank you so much. And we're wanted to go to London, and you see already the picture for Andrew Brown. And let me give you a little bit of a background before we give the microphone to Andrew. Andrew represents the World, the WTTC, World Travel and Tourism Council, what many say is the home for the most influential companies in the world in regards to travel and tourism. And I have to say, this discussion on rebuilding travel, COVID, and everything else actually is a little bit older than a year. And I know I had very intense discussions with Gloria Goravar. She is the CEO of WTTC, former Minister of Tourism from Mexico. And we were talking before ITB was even canceled. And she was very active in this. We had some very good back and forth, and everything ever since. We've been in touch on WhatsApp almost every week, and of course follow the initiatives from WTTC. Many, and we have written this in eTurboNews, believe that Gloria is probably the most influential woman or person in the travel and tourism industry. And it's not only taking the task now of the private industry, and Taleb brought the private industry and the public sector together, but she's keeping this concept. I think WTTC started with Taleb when he was in charge of UNWTO forward and onward, pretty much on her own in a lot of ways. And she's been a wonderful woman. She wasn't able to attend us personally. I'm sure there's so many events for her to attend, but she made sure that Andrew, and Andrew can tell you who he is and what his role is in WTTC, but we're very pleased to have you here, Andrew.
Before Andrew speaks, may I just say something about the
Sure.
WTC is the only organization now that's picking up the pieces when it comes to government cooperation. The only organization. As the minister said, it's not enough to have each government work on its own, do its best. If governments don't work together, if all authorities don't work together, it won't work. You're the only organization that's picking the pieces. Thank you so much, Andrew, for being with us. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Taleb. Thank you, Taleb, and thank you, Jürgen, for that very nice introduction. Am I able to share my screen by chance?
Yes, you can.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, everyone. Thank you for having the time. I'm Andrew from the World Travel and Tourism Council, calling in from London. You'll hear that my accent is not here from the UK. I'm from New Zealand originally. So where COVID is not really present right now, but we'll fight that battle.
Thanks to the lady Prime Minister.
Yes, Jacinda's job down there. So I'm the regional director here at WTTC for Europe and Oceania is simply for translation purposes, as we speak a lot faster down in that part of the world. And but it was great to hear the passion that you have for Africa, and I can't wait to go traveling once again and the amazing continent that is Africa, and the powerful messaging that you're putting across is amazing. Please continue that. And Minister, same to you as well. It's great to hear that Eswatini is looking to use tourism as a massive driver of your economy, currently 10%, and we look forward to seeing the results increase even more as we go forward. So if I just take a moment to introduce everyone here to WTTC, just in case you might not know, obviously Taleb is not on the slide, but Taleb is our ambassador, our global ambassador, and we're very welcome. We're very delighted to have him as our ambassador.
Thank you.
WTTC is the global body that represents the private sector in travel and tourism. Our members are some of which that you'll see on the screen here, and they encompass all geographies and all industries within travel and tourism, from airports to cruises, from OTAs, travel services to tour operators. Every single industry is encountered within WTTC. We were founded 30 years ago last year, so it was a unique year to celebrate our 30th anniversary. And the reason for WTTC was around highlighting the economic impact that travel and tourism has on the world economy, but also on the country and regions of this world. So the minister mentioned that Eswatini has 10% of its GDP focused on tourism. That's very, very well aligned to the global average, where travel and tourism contributes 10.3% to the global economy. Now, these are pre-COVID numbers. So as you can see on the graph below, that we were experiencing a very, very positive time. There was 8-9 years of consecutive growth of travel and tourism over and above the global economy. And during that time, obviously Taleb was the SG of UNWTO, and that was a very golden age of travel and tourism. One other point I want to point out on this slide is travel and tourism accounted for 1 in 4 of every new jobs created globally. So if you think of every 4 jobs, 1 of them was in travel and tourism. And this made up 330 million jobs worldwide. So we were a very dominant sector. We were doing very, very well. And so that was pre-COVID. Now, to show what it's done now, what's COVID done to us? Well, at the end of last year, we projected that 174 million jobs had been impacted. Now, let's remember that that initial number was 330 million. So 174 is over 53% below. And that's very significant. And then if we translate that into dollar figures, you can see there it's 4.7 billion. So that's very, very significant. Sorry, 4.7 trillion. So again, 53%. But then we looked at it and said, hey, how can we look towards a positive recovery in 2021? What would be the best outcome of international collaboration, which I'll come on to very, very soon. And we saw that there is the opportunity, if the governments combine, the private sector, the public sector, all get together and we can recover 111 million jobs, which is a massive upside in what we've seen compared to earlier on last year. And of course, there is a conservative effort of 84 million jobs. That is still a significant uptick in what we were doing and how we're seeing it. Now, how can we get there? So WTDC does produce economic impact research for 185 countries and 25 regions globally. But we also do research on the very key issues that face all of us across travel and tourism. So one of them in 2019, ironically, was crisis. And we were preparing internally using our members and global experts to say, how can we best prepare for when a crisis happens, not knowing that COVID-19 was coming about. And what this did highlight was the need for international collaboration, international coordination, everyone working together to get back to status quo. And as you can see on the right, the different timelines that we saw when people work together and when they don't. And so if I go to the next graph here and show you what we mean by the importance of an international collaboration. On the top left-hand side, so the world, so this is the global economy, the global performance over this time period from 2000 to 2019. A there, you'll see is 9/11. So this is what we've called a U-shaped recovery. Now, this is where it was very disparate. A lot of different countries and nations and regions were acting in silos. So there wasn't international coordination. We weren't on the same playing field. So you can see the recovery took a lot longer to bounce back. But when we go to number B there, which is the global financial crisis that was hitting in 2008, 2009, there was international coordination. That is a V-shaped recovery. So you can see it's a very, very quick bounce back from what we were in terms of the 9/11 to how we were following the GFC. And the reason I have the other two graphs there on the right-hand side is that the G20 very much mimics and influences the world economy, as we well know. And so what WTDC has been doing over this time, over the last year, and congratulations once again, Jürgen, for your first year anniversary, is working very, very closely with the G20 under the leadership last year of Saudi to really put towards how can the private sector help the public sector get back and recover really, really fast. And I'm delighted to say there was a lot of work done here, and I'm happy to share the points that we agreed on, and Saudi really led this with behalf of our members on this. So where are we now? How can we create that V-shaped recovery? How can we bounce back as quickly as possible? And so what we've got here is the approach that WTDC is taking. And first of all, that is making the invisible visible. This is putting in place testing procedures so that we are not exporting the virus, so that when we are at the ports or airports, there is testing in place. And this also leads on to having an individual risk assessment versus a national risk assessment. So this is around the testing and ensuring that if I here in the UK want to travel to Africa, anywhere in the great continent of Africa, all I need to do is take a test and travel and obviously be negative. but that also applies to the vaccine. So having both in place. And sort of as you can see down the points here, I think that one of the most important ones is that there is no one solution that fits. Right now, there is many digital apps, many digital passes in discussion and implementation. And what WTDC is pushing is for their interoperability. So to ensure that they all talk together and can all communicate the same message, so that when we are traveling to any country in the world, it is recognized that we have had a negative test or that we have been vaccinated, as this will ensure that the quarantines, which are just so restrictive, that the quarantines can be removed. And I guess the final point there is the certainty. It is a clear and concise communication is what WTDC is really putting out there. It's for governments and the private sector to both align around what particular tests that we need, how long can we go, and all this will help allow travelers to travel a lot easier, which is what we all want. So how can we do this? And so at WTDC, with our members behind us, so we have 200 of our members, which are presidents, chairs, and CEOs, we've developed principles to establish international mobility. So you can see these on the slide here, and sort of what they really boil down to is rapid, low-cost testing so that we can avoid exploiting the virus, as well as protocols, and the minister mentioned protocols. And these are very important to help ensure that there is consumer confidence, whether we're on airplanes, in hotels, in tour operators or whatever, is that their health and hygiene are at the #1 priority, #1 goal, whether that's wearing a mask or whether that's sanitizing all conditions. It's very important. As well as there, you'll see the continued support for our sector, as that includes fiscal, includes liquidity, as well as promotions going forward and setting aside cash, money, to allow the destinations to promote themselves going forward and the new normal that we are seeing coming forward. So where are we? Right now, as we're very well aware, there is a vaccine rollout, but it's going to be very slow to ensure that there is herd vaccinations across the world. So right now, the seniors and vulnerable are being vaccinated, and Talib, it's great to hear you've had your second vaccination today, but it's going to take a long time to get everywhere. So what can we do before then? So as I mentioned, there are a lot of apps. It's using these, it's using testing and the protocols. Now, WTDC developed protocols for 11 different industries globally last year. More than happy to share them with you. Please just reach out, as well as a safe travel stamp. So this is so organizations can put a global recognition that they have signed up and are enforcing health and hygiene protocols. So this is where we see different milestones going forward that we can get back to normalization. But what will the future of travel tourism be? So obviously we're not going to go back to how we were, but we're going to be better than where we were before. So this is going to focus on the digital agenda. So these are the apps. This is contact tracing. This is the use of technology through the airport, through hotel check-in, so that there is contactless, as well as sustainability agenda has been accelerated. So it's great that Jeffrey Lippmann is speaking very shortly around his amazing project that we're working with. And that is really at the core forefront of where travel and tourism is going around sustainability. Some protocols, of course, are gonna exist, but at the end of the day, right now, we just need to learn to coexist with the virus and ensure that we are putting in place these protocols, wearing a mask, sanitizing our hands, so that we can get back to enjoying the lovely world that we have. So how are we doing this? So WTDC every year hosts a global summit. Last year was at Abnormality, but this year, next month, we're going to be hosting our first hybrid summit. So there'll be an in-person with the top of the line protocols and guidelines in place to ensure the health and hygiene of everyone present, as well as a massive virtual aspect. So over 25,000 virtual options are available to sign up to. So if you'd like to have an invitation to the Global Summit, please let me know. I'm more than happy to distribute that. Obviously our hosts are the Mexican Caribbean, so in Quintana Roo in Mexico. I'm very looking forward to going there. So thank you for listening to me. I'm more than happy to ask any questions and also share any more insights that WTDC has to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Very interesting as always. Perhaps if you wanted to send us the PowerPoint, we'd be happy to share it also. And we're, as I said, we're very glad you're here. WTTC, of course, has a leading role in this environment, and that you're from New Zealand is very assuring. One of our neighbors here, only 1 time hour away. Are you in New Zealand now, or are you in London?
No, I'm in London now.
In London, okay.
The borders are shut.
Okay, but in New Zealand, I think the whole world can really learn from New Zealand. The Honourable Minister raised his hand, and Honourable Minister, go ahead with your question.
No, thank you very much. This is very exciting a presentation. In fact, I think key to where we are right now is the issue of the coexistence with the virus. I think for me, that's really, really key, because the protocols are going to be here. And I don't think anyone knows as to when this virus will be over. It will now be like in Africa, we've got smallpox, and every time you travel, you must make sure that you have gotten your jab or your injection. But maybe if you can assist here, Andrew, regarding the digital transformation, the form and shape, because I think that is going to be the new normal now. I mean, we are even talking about the issue of the summit. It has got to be virtual. And in fact, I saw one person commenting here that let's not wait until the COVID pandemic is over. Let's try and simulate some of these summits as if because it's likely to be the new normal. What are your views on that one? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, and great question. And I'd just like to point out that the summit that I did mention will be both an in-person event and a hybrid virtual event. So there will be people on site, and I'll be traveling to Cancun next month to deliver the event in person. There'll be a lot of ministers of tourism there as well, particularly from LATAM and the Americas. And Minister, more than happy to extend an invitation for you to join us in Cancun. Around the digital agenda, and this has been a priority of WTTC for 3 years now. When Gloria joined WTTC over 3 years ago, the digitalization really came to the forefront, and that was around biometrics and establishing a safe and seamless traveler journey. So when we are going through the airport using technology there, that is developed out now in terms of ensuring that the safety and hygiene are at the #1 priority when we're going forward. And so where this taps into, and I see this, there has been a comment in the chat box around Common Pass. We're working very closely with these apps and with these technology providers. So we have a number of technology providers as well who are members of WTTC and very strong partners to ensure that when certain products are rolled out, that they are available to everyone and it doesn't discriminate against who perhaps can't tap into them right now, and ensure that it is the same message that everyone wants to put out.
Thank you very much. And I think Taleb had a comment.
Thank you so much. I just want to congratulate WTTC on its performance. I want to mention 2 things in particular. Overemphasis on vaccine is not good, that's for sure. Testing is by far much more available, much more affordable. And vaccination will not cover the whole world now. It will take years for people to be vaccinated because it's a matter of equity. Rich countries are not going to give in. So I'm glad that you mentioned in particular that vaccination is not going to be a requirement. So is quarantine. Quarantine and vaccination are not the solution. Not now, not for the immediate future. Thank you so much for saying this and doing it. But I just want to comment something since the minister is here, because what you said, the protocols, this summit that's going to be held in Cancun, which I'm very proudly attending next month, will be an opportunity for governments to come together. Because if governments don't work together, no protocols are going to work. You can't go from one country that has quarantine to another country that does not require anything other than 72 hours ahead of time vaccine testing, or another country that is insisting on passport that says you're vaccinated. Governments have to come to a minimum of understanding together. The multilateral system, unfortunately, has failed us so far. The multilateral system needs to be restructured again, and the Cancun event It's an opportunity for us to redo that and send a strong message to the world. The world needs to come together. We can't keep going on like this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Talib. Thank you, Andrew. And I believe there's a lot more to say. And Andrew, if WTTC agrees, we'd be happy to do another session. As I offered the minister from Eswatini in the future, we can discuss all these points in more detail. And yes, Cancun seems to be a very important event, and I will certainly try to. I cannot wait to leave this island here. Hopefully, sometime soon. Even though I love Hawaii, but you're kind of confined on 25 times 40 miles, and it's time to travel again. And hopefully, with the vaccine, we can all get into the stage. I wanted to go to Ukraine, and of course, if Dimitro, who works here in Honolulu, who is originally from Ukraine, is actually on the group here right now. We have one of your countrymen now with us, and his name is Ivan. Ivan. I'm sorry, I called him Ivan. Or Ivan.
Ivan, right? Ivan, right?
Liptuga, and he's joining us from the. I think he's the head of the Ukraine National Tourism Organization based in Kiev, if I'm not mistaken. And also, he's been a member for World Tourism Network.
You're right.
And part of the Rebuilding.Travel discussion from the beginning. And I've visited. I've visited Ukraine. Great country, fun people. They love to party. So when are we going to get back to this in Ukraine? Go ahead.
Thank you, Jürgen. Thank you, Jürgen, for invitation and for all what you do. Actually, I follow your World Tourism Network and all your e-news, eTurboNews for many years, and I'm excited how many things you do at the same time. And same like you, surprised about Talib Rifai, who is my teacher and inspirer, actually. In my opinion, the best Secretary General of UNWTO ever.
Thank you.
So thank you for the invitation. I'm happy today to be a speaker here, to see so honorable speakers with me. May I just share some slides? I would like to speak on the topic. I didn't know what kind of format of this conversation will be, so I prepared a few slides about the situation about rebuilding travel, using some slides of the global picture, what we had in growth. In growth of tourism in recent 50 years, 70 years, that tourism was growing and nobody expected these changes. In recent 30 years, we had growth of more than 100%, and it was for us, our reality. Every year we saw about 5 to 8% of growth globally. And 2017 was the year of sustainable tourism and the biggest growth. So as all of you know from statistics of UNWTO, the biggest continent, 51% of arrivals are in the Europe, more than 740 million coming to the European continent, and Ukraine here in the center of Europe is the country of eastern part of it. And annually, before 2020, we had about 13.7 million people coming to us. So in 2019, we had smaller growth if to compare with 2018. But majority of countries expected the growth in 2020, and nobody could predict what will happen, what happened a year ago. And today, all of us will live in this reality when all lights of crosslight are shining at the same time, and nobody knows what will happen next and which countries will close their borders or open it. And so we live in this reality now, what even couldn't imagine a year ago. So the pessimist prognosis happened from UNWTO. What we could see that minus almost 74% globally we had in comparison with 2019, and in Europe it was almost minus 70%. So all countries and all continents live now in this situation when we develop our domestic tourism and even staycations. Majority of countries try to develop this domestic travel, and nobody knows exactly, but definitely we will not come back earlier than 22, 23 to previous figures. In Ukraine, our statistics looked like this. You may see in last 10 years, we had about almost 25 million arrivals of foreigners to Ukraine on 2013. In 2013, started our conflict with Russian Federation on the east of Ukraine and annexion of island of Crimea. And in that moment, the inbound to Ukraine decreased almost twice till 12.7 million. And from that moment, we were about the same level until the 2019. In 2020, we had only 3,400,000 of arrivals. On the top 5 positions from these 3 million were Moldovians, our neighbor country, Belarus, also our neighbor country, Russian Federation, Poland and Romania, all our neighbors. If you look on this table, the 98% of tourists who come to Ukraine, it's Eastern Europe and European states. So what we do during this year is we, as a national tourism organization, we are a non-governmental organization. When Talib Rifai was the Secretary General, I also placed the position of Director of Tourism Department in the Ministry of Economy. And at that time, we developed the marketing strategy and tourism strategy for Ukraine in 2013, so means 7 years ago. This is the brand of Ukraine, which was presented and approved by the UNWTO. Here, Mr. Talib Rifai and me met in 2017 on the conference, and this is sign of our brand signage by hands. So we organized the conference on destination branding in collaboration with UNWTO. It was in 2016, and during this conference we invited many neighbor countries from Eastern Europe and ex-CIS, and spoke about the marketing and branding of destinations, how it works in new reality and in new digital format. In Ukraine, we promoted the idea of destination marketing and branding starting from 2015, 2016. Today we have a lot of branding and marketing concepts for almost all territories and all regions in Ukraine. And our organization strategy is to promote Ukraine as destination, as new destination of Eastern Europe. And National Tourism Organization was established by recommendations of UNWTO to the government of Ukraine. So during this year, we started to use this opportunity to institutionally strengthening our destination management organizations on the regional and local level. So we use this opportunity to work internally here in Ukraine and to develop our business associations and industry business associations, also with regional DMOs. We work mainly on support of international donors, because in our governmental system, tourism is not very well financed and understood as a real priority. Now, it's in priority, it exists, but not enough investments in institutional strengthening until that moment. So we now work with international partners like European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, USAID, and German organization GIZ to consolidate the regions, to consolidate business associations. And our main activities now concentrated on better networking, coordination of all regions and all types of industries in tourism sector. We work on marketing of destinations. As I said, in 2020 we had chance only to present ourselves in Milano BIT. After this exhibition all went into lockdown. It was the only probably exhibition in 2020. We make different videos and movies promoting destinations for domestic tourism and also for international tourism. When borders will be open, we created this year 250 products in all types of tourism for all regions of Ukraine, and our tour operators investigate different parts of Ukraine which were not very well known for them, so our goal is to present destinations to tour operators for inbound. We also started initiative of our training, and now we work actively on our development of e-learning programs. We created this year 9 e-learning programs for tour operators, hospitality industry, tourist guides, for DMOs, for quality management, for statistics in tourism, and also basics in tourism for communities. In quality, we work on implementation of international and European standards into our practical activities. According to very good book, which I recommend to all, especially now, Practical Guidelines of Integrated Quality Management in Tourism Destinations, these recommendations gives very clear vision how destinations should provide quality management on level of the whole destination, because every link in the value chain of tourism product matters. And so this year we developed in Ukrainian recommendations for about 20 different standards. These standards are about, as you can see here, on industrial tourism, ecological tourism, sustainable management of accommodation, sustainable events, beaches, and many others. We also developed 3 brand new standards for hostels, for rural tourism and rural accommodations, and just in December was presented new standard on medical tourism by ISO, which we also translated into our language and now present to our medical industry. All these recommendations are available on our website, and we promote them and provide certification of quality for industry. And we also promote the idea that certification on correspondence to the standards is a completely different story from awards and different prestige awards. We also became provider of Safe Travels initiative of World Travel and Tourism Council. We started our cooperation in May with World Travel and Tourism Council on that, and it was successful initiative in Ukraine because many cities, almost all big cities and small cities joined the program. We translated all protocols into Ukrainian language and promoted this initiative all over our regions. And today we have about 500 different companies who provided the protocols and labeled it in their businesses. So we had a contest and made awards for best practices in these safe travels. We also concentrated on statistics. In statistics, we developed the methodology according to recommendations of UN on satellite account. I will not go in details on the figures which we found, but most important that we found in analyze that GDP in GDP tourism of Ukraine is 11 and 6%, which is good to understand for our governments and people who take decisions on the regional level. We created dashboards also available on our website, and now investors, businesses, and governments may study the statistics in details for about 10 years. We also work on investments. We had a conversation with Investment Council in tourism. Ibrahim Ayub, the colleague of Mr. Rifai, and we are going to organize a forum of Eastern Europe in investments of tourism. Don't know when, maybe next year, but we have it in plan. And also we work actively on public diplomacy. Public diplomacy, we involve people in promoting their destinations, residents, and for this we create ambassadors club in different cities. Also, after UNWTO made the 2017 the year of sustainable tourism, we have this tradition to announce every year in some particular topic. And 2021 we have the year of urban tourism, supported by the World Tourism Cities Federation, and in 24th of March we will have on our exhibition the conference joined with WTCF on that. Yes, this is brief how we spend this year trying to rebuild our travel and promote tourism in Ukraine.
Wow, you guys have been absolutely busy and fantastic material. And my invitation also to you, ready to do a event on Ukraine whenever you're ready. And thank you for this outline. I had Andrew raising
great job.
Great job,
job,
absolutely. And Andrew had
Thank
a
you.
question. Go ahead, Andrew.
Not a question, just more congratulations to Ivan and his team. Our Safe Travels destination stamp has over 250 destinations, and I'd certainly say Ivan and Ukraine are up there with the best practice globally in terms of the rollout that they have done and the collateral and the really manpower they've put behind it to put tourism at the forefront. So congratulations, Ivan and Ukraine.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Yeah, we discussed that with you, and we are happy to promote this safe travels culture from protocols to culture. And in Ukraine, this worked pretty well because we didn't have from side of the ministry or from side of any government structure any such good marketing tool. Yeah, good marketing tool, and a lot of things are in on the level of marketing works better than just obligations and so on. So I think it was good initiative. I know all opinions about that, and that there's maybe more certification needed and so on. But I can say that it was a success story of safe travels in Ukraine.
Well, thank you very much, Ivan. Thanks, Andrew. And let's go to my good friend, Professor Jeffrey Lippmann in Brussels. And of course, those in the industry know Jeffrey. I don't have to introduce him. Those that are maybe watching us from outside, Jeffrey has been actually the first CEO and founder, or kind of the brainchild behind the World Travel and Tourism Council. He has been the Assistant Secretary General for the UNWTO, so that means he worked on both sides of the spectrum. And he's now very much involved in the green and climate friendly issue. Actually, Jeffrey and I were involved in Jeffrey and I were involved in the International Coalition of Tourism Partners, ICTP, what is an organization that deals with green growth and quality equals business. And Jeffrey now is involved in SunX, and he will probably tell you a lot more. Jeffrey, you also raised your hand, but I thought I'd just wait and give you the floor exclusively now.
Thank you, Thomas, or Jürgen, as you are known to so many. And as always, hi to my friend Taleb, with whom I worked closely for many years, and I share Ivan's view on Taleb's role as the Secretary General of UNWTO, which was outstanding. But first, I want to take the opportunity, I think on behalf of everyone, to congratulate you, Thomas, on being the most consistent and persistent network creator in our sector. I've watched you build ETN. I've heard all the good and the bad criticisms. You weather them all. You're fearless. You say exactly what you think. And the very fact that you've got, this time of night where I am on a Friday evening, and much later if you're going into Asia, so many people sticking with this event is just a tribute to your vision and your capability as a communicator. So I think on behalf of all of us, it's a 12-month anniversary. I want to make that point. And I did raise my hand. This is a second point, and I say this as an analyst. I agree with pretty much everything in Andrew's excellent presentation. It's a huge pleasure for me to see how effective WTTC is after very, very small beginnings. And it's a great tribute to Gloria and her team. And as Andrew said, we are very pleased and proud to be working with them on what I think is the biggest issue, which I want to talk about briefly. And it's bigger than COVID, it's the climate crisis. But I want to, before I make a few comments on that, I just want to say where I disagree with Andrew, and it's as an analyst. The COVID virus, we can respond to it as a sector and the different components of travel and tourism. But at the end of the day, it is a public health issue. And the opening of travel markets will, all the lobbying in the world will not change the grim reality that this virus kills people, and it kills lots of people. 500,000 people because Donald Trump treated it so casually in the United States. And our challenge as a sector, and we don't like to say this, but I'm old enough to say it, is we are always a risk element because we move people around. Millions of people, billions of people we move around. And it's for that reason, on the one point, I think the government public health authorities have decided we have to have a vaccination regime around the world to give a global protection against this enemy. It's a war that we're in. And 1 year on, all I can see is that there's little improvement in the situation and little indication about when we will return to any sort of normalcy. And I think it was Ivan mentioned 22. I've heard aviation people talking about 24. I think we have to hunker down and do exactly the kind of thing that Ivan has just described, which is to preserve what we can and prepare for a re-emergence at some uncertain time in the future. And I truly believe that vaccination will become a bigger issue than, I think, Andrew, that was when I raised my hand. I think it will become a bigger issue because governments have to satisfy their electors that they're doing everything to protect their people. And it's bigger than we are, I'm afraid to say. So I don't want to take up too much time. Many of you have heard me on WTN before, and I find myself a little bit like that Roman senator who stood up every time, and he started every speech by saying, Carthage must be destroyed. And I'm saying every time, COVID is terrible, but climate will be COVID on steroids. Every government in the world has committed to the reality that if we don't fix this at a global level by 2050, and it means getting on track by 2030 with our carbon reduction, if we don't fix this, I've said this often, I repeat it, your grandkids, my grandkids are going to either freeze or they're going to fry. And if you want to see a better example, you can't find one than Texas in the United States for the last 2 or 3 weeks, which has had totally abnormal weather patterns. And its tourism has been dependent for a century on consistent weather patterns. All of our seasons, most of our products, many of our trade routes are there because of flows which follow weather. And climate destroys the weather that we have known it. So what we're doing at SunX Malta, Sun is a legacy for my friend and mentor, Maurice Strong, who built the UN response system, the Rio Earth Summit, the Stockholm Earth Summit, the United Nations Environment Programme, UNFCCC. Maurice was warning about the climate crisis 50 years ago. And what we are doing is we're trying to help the travel and tourism sector, companies and communities and destination marketing organizations adapt their planning to take account of the climate crisis. We've created a concept called climate-friendly travel, and that is low carbon. It's linked to the Sustainable Development Goals, which are much more complex than anyone in the industry is talking about and require considerable effort to be aligned with. And on the other hand, the Paris 1.5 scenario for climate reduction. And we're working very closely with WTTC. Gloria is taking a lead on this issue. And we do research together. We produce an annual report together. We've worked together to build a registry of climate ambitions where any company and any community at no cost can develop a plan and register it so that we will be aligned with the rest of humanity in following the changing norms that the UNFCCC, the Climate Agency, and the heads of government are aligning themselves to. We will not be able to create our own reality. We will either have to fit into the global reality, or we will simply be consumed by the crisis. And that's one dimension of our work, is research and a registry of ambitions. And the second dimension is education. It will not be us that are hit by the climate crisis. I will be dead. And most people on this call will be dead when it hits the worst. but our kids and our grandkids, they will be in the middle of it if we don't act. So we've developed an education system. We're looking at schools. We're looking at we have a diploma. We have 45 students from 30 countries around the world in the middle of this. It's the first diploma on climate resilience. And next month, 2 months' time, on the 29th and the 30th of August, we'll host the first of an annual global event called SAYS. It's the Strong Earth Youth Summit. And it will run for 2 days, and it will be a virtual event in 3 regions. It'll be in Canada for the Americas, it'll be in Bangkok for Asia Pacific, and it will be in Malta for Europe, Middle East, Africa. And we'll have a full program with some of the best thought leaders and industry decision makers and academics who are trying to see how we can adapt ourselves as a sector to fit in with where the rest of society is going. The reality is we are behind the curve. We talk a good game, but we do not do much to act. And we have 10 years to get it right. I see this as my last great crusade, and I'm happy to be working with Malta. It's a small island state which first put climate onto the UN General Assembly agenda. And they are supporting the work we are doing. And we would love to hear from people. We would love to engage. We have an open collaboration philosophy. This is a huge problem, and we can't deal with it in small sectoral or small specialized organizations. We have to get behind the leading initiative of the WTTC with the UNFCCC, and we have to follow science, and we have to make changes. The changes will be significant. They will be from the grassroots to the very top of the sector, and we have to start making them now. So, having produced an atmosphere of doom and gloom, let me finish again by thanking you, Thomas, for the opportunity to make this intervention and to say that we are open to SDG 17 collaborations with companies, with communities, with countries, with organizations. We have to move together on this issue.
Well, thank you very much, Jeffrey. Now, wanted to remind Green and Clean Voice. This is our interest group we started under Jeffrey's leadership, and hopefully you will see more when you go to interest groups and click on Green and Clean Voice. Talib, though, I had a question before we move on.
I just want to congratulate Jeffrey. Jeffrey, always when he speaks, I feel jealous about it. Jeffrey is full of passion, and this passion is translating into action, really, Jeffrey. I really envy you. You're a wonderful person. What you said makes a lot of sense. But I would just want to make one single comment on the issue of COVID and its relationship with the climate. I think they are two different issues. Climate is something that started before COVID and will continue after COVID, for sure. Now, regarding COVID, although I agree with you on the issue of the vaccine, many countries are going to play the vaccine card, but the vaccine is a card game that's played by the strong countries only, and it does not have equity. You can't impose vaccine just for travel. This vaccine passport, for example, is going to be a disaster, just like the quarantine is a disaster. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm against you in this at all. Just want you to think about it a little bit more. I think vaccine is being used politically now, more than anything else. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Talib. And if there are more questions, anything, unfortunately, we're running a little bit out of time. So let's move on, because we have 3 more short feedback here. One is from Alexandra Sasha in Montenegro. Alexandra is leading our Balkan chapter, and this was our very first chapter we started. And actually, she had the idea about chapters, and so she's been very active. We had a session from the Balkan region with Albania and Serbia, Montenegro and so forth. And also Montenegro, I understand, is hard hit by COVID at this time. So they're going through a little bit of a hard time. Maybe just very briefly, Alexander, tell us who you are and where everything is.
Yes. Good evening or good morning to all WTN members spread all over the world. Kind regards to everybody. It is a great session tonight and I really enjoyed. First of all, big thanks to you, Jürgen, as the main responsible for us being here tonight celebrating 1 year of rebuilding travel. You did a great job together with Dr. Taleb, Peter Tarlow and Dr. Taleb Rifai. Thanks to you, I would say we have made a real difference and became a trendsetters in global tourism during this pandemic. A year ago, we all thought that this would be a short time project. Unfortunately, we are still here discussing the same topic, but with much more confidence and knowledge how to handle this difficult situation. Back in March, we were very confused regardless